Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 305, and today we're covering Irish stick fighting at a different sanction. Last time we covered Doyle, so this is a different organization, and we're going to hear about it. And our guest today is Maxime Chouinard, and we're going to be bringing him up right now. So if you have any questions, and also if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from, and smash that like button. Hey there, how you doing?
Hi, Dean. Good to you.
Good. And again, I want to thank you for coming on. So this, typically first couple of years was heavily FMA driven as far as the interviews, but I figured, branch out. As long as it still kind of falls under weapons, I think we're good. So,
Awesome.
and thus far it's been well received. So so I think we're gonna take a course on bringing other different systems in. So before we get into it, what was your before you got into Irish stick fighting and all that? What was your martial arts background?
So the first martial art I ever took was in my hometown. It's called it's a little town in eastern Quebec called Saint-Anne-des-Monts. And I started with Kyokushin karate when I was about 13 or 14 years old. And did this for about 8 years. Went to train in Japan for a summer, and it was curiously enough, it was the only martial art available in my hometown. So it was very popular over there. So that was my first foray into martial arts. And when I moved for college around Rimouski, which is a bit of a larger town in around Quebec, we started doing Shinkendo under Bata sensei, and it was one of the first armed martial arts. We did a little bit of kabuto when we were doing Kyokushin karate, but Shinkendo was really the most dedicated weapon martial art, the first one I tried, and also did that for quite a few years. Even started a little group in Quebec City when I moved there for university. And at around that time, I started also doing BJJ, started doing a few different things, a little bit of Krav Maga, started to be trying different things around there, because coming back from Japan, I had a very interesting experience where I by a little bit by mistake, I joined a full contact competition class one day. Again, it was kind of lost in translation what the nature of the class was, and so I was paired up during one of the sparring with this giant of a Japanese man, black belt, who was totally merciless with me during the practice. Ended up gone out of that class with bruised rib, and but coming back from that experience, it really highlighted for me, because I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'6", and fighting this guy, I realized I need some kind of an equalizer. If I ever meet somebody like this,
that big, right?
Yeah, it's they'd say, "Oh, it's all about technique," Size matter.
Man, not really that big, man. And they're skilled too, on top of it.
Yeah. That's what kind of drew me at first into weapons, and then because I was studying archaeology, I also got interested in the history of martial arts, and then I got into HEMA, so Circle European Martial Arts. Started doing a little bit of Circle military saber. Also got interested in Lacan, so French stick fighting, and in around 2007, I decided to travel to Ireland with my brother-in-law, Emile, and we stayed there for 3 months. And it was kind of a lucky kind of a lucky coincidence. But because I was active on some HEMA forums, I knew that there was a thing called Irish stick, and I knew that some people were doing that. I heard about this, and I thought, oh, we're going to Ireland, so why not try the local martial arts? So in my head, I thought, oh, there's probably like clubs everywhere, in all major cities, and we'll contact some people and see what it's all about. So I joined this group with Ken Frenger and this guy Louis Pastor, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago now. Gave me the contact of the man who was going to be my instructor, Mr. Ramsey, and told me, oh yeah, contact this guy, train a little bit with him in the past, and he's a good guy. I'll show you the ropes. So we contacted him, and he accepted to teach us. And traveling there, we realized that, well, you know what? There's really not much of an Irish stick scene around in Ireland. A lot of people were talking about this. They were like, what are you talking about? Irish stick fighting. This
going to Philippines and like, what?
Yeah. Well, you go to Japan even, I find, like when I was there, I talked to people about, I do kenjutsu, or I do like even Kyokushin karate. Like they knew, obviously people knew what karate was, but when you talk about Kyokushin, it was like it began to be too niche for most people. But yeah, like we met with my teacher, and through practicing with him and learning from him, we realized that he was telling us, I learned this from my family, but like nobody around here does that anymore, really. So that was our what brought me into all of this. Yeah.
Wow. So when so we got what led you there. What so when you got exposed to it, what appealed to you, and compared as far as the other previous weapon system you were exposed to, what appealed to you regarding Irish stick fighting?
Well, I must say, at first it was a little bit of the it was some of my Irish roots, I guess. That was one of my first appeal in this, because we were traveling to Ireland because I had some Irish ancestor, and my grandmother always told me about stories about them, and when they arrived in Canada and in Quebec, and I always wanted to visit Ireland because of this, and so this is partly why I was interested, but also because I just wanted to. When I travel, I want to try all the different martial arts that I can. But what really brought me to be interested in to that point was that when we had finished training with our teacher, he basically told us, well, we had never asked for this, but he told us we had the permission to teach. And we're kind of thinking back. I was like, oh, okay. And we realized that nobody else does this. Like he was teaching us, but he was not really interested in setting up a group himself. He doesn't want to be much of a public figure, at least around Irish stick. And so he told us, you'll be back in. Funnily enough, he told us you'll be back in 15 years, and then people will ask you to teach it around here. And it's funny because I met him again in last spring. We went back to Ireland, and I told him, you told me like 15 years ago I would go back here 15 years, and people would ask me to teach, and that's what I did. Taught a seminar in Dublin about this. So it was kind of a sense, I guess, of a sense of preservation. Like we thought, like, we have this. If we don't keep it alive, it's likely going to be dead in a
fade out, like some FMA systems. If they don't keep going, you know what I mean? It's I think there's a few things that are potentially in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So I mean, so basically, Antrim Bata. Can you describe like the style and what it stresses, and then maybe talk about the founder?
For sure, yeah. So Antrim Bata, and we can probably do a little bit of a demo here. By the way, if you hear some noise in the background,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I
students.
heard some clicking in the back. So
Yeah, some students practicing here. But yeah, Antrim Bata basically is it's what we call Batarok. So it's a style of stick fighting using what we call shillelagh. So I got a little antique one here that I
okay.
actually brought back from Ireland. This is a stick that is about walking stick length, but it's what would call also a cudgel or a club, or there's many different ways to call this, but it's a stick with a merlon or a knob as a striking hand, which was sometimes filled up with lead. And the style Antrim Bata is a little bit, I would say, more of a mainstream style, if we can call it that way. From all the research I've done into the history, it seems like this was very much the style that was associated with the practice. And basically, you're always holding, or your main grip at least is holding the stick by the third or so that the stick arrives a little bit past your elbow this way,
Okay.
and you hold it around your head here so that this protects the side of your head, the outside protects your elbow, and protects the top of your head. And your the position allows you to do some quicker, more direct strikes, a little bit like a punching or throwing motion. And I can explain that a little bit more in the demo we're going to do. But with other martial arts, sometimes the movement is a little bit more like a slashing motion, where the blow follows the direction of the hips. It's not quite the same in Irish stick fighting. It's a little bit more like boxing in a way, because you're not just going across your hips, just following them. You're using your hips and your body to push into your shoulder, and the shoulder is going to help throw the arm and throw the stick into the target and come back quickly. So that's what makes it different from other
Okay. And so what about the founder or the family system of origin? I mean,
so this one is a little bit it's a little bit more murky, because the Irish stick fighting was almost always a working class system, and it was not practiced necessarily by people that had access to writing or printing press or things like this. So a lot of the history we have is oral, and we know that at least from the family stories, that we know that there were people in the family that were famous faction fighters in the mid 19th century. One of them, his nickname was Tickety Boo, and apparently was a very famous stick fighter in the Antrim region. And the style, was handed out through the Ramsey family, through the great grandfather, and so on. So we don't have a lot of stories remaining from the people that practice it, unfortunately. It's something I'm trying to bug my teacher a little bit more about, so that we can uncover more of this before.
Of course, historically speaking.
Yeah.
So is it widely? I guess not only widely known. Is it widely practiced globally, or is it more just Canada? Yourself in Canada, or Ireland, rather, I should say, and Canada.
So in Antrim Bata right now, we have representative in about 7 countries.
Okay, that's more than I would have thought. Okay.
Yeah. So we have our group here in Ottawa that teaches it, but over the year it grew and grew. So we have Danny Oskins, that's in around St. Louis, Missouri, that's also teaching it.
Know of him? Yeah.
Yeah. It's been one of my older students started quite a few many years ago. And we also have a little group in Montreal, but overseas we've got quite a few groups now in France. It's kind of a lot of interest over there. We also have obviously now a group in Dublin, so it's now actively taught again in
Or it should
Ireland.
be. I mean, right? It
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be.
you can imagine. Yeah,
There should be a group there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a little group in Mexico City, or rather around Toluca. We have also a group and a little study group in the Netherlands, Spain, and Switzerland as well. Got a little study group going there. One in Germany, and hope I'm not forgetting anyone, but I think that's about it.
Who do you got? Who do you got in Mexico? I'm just curious.
So Arturo Camargo is one of the guy who teaches mostly HEMA for the preschool of HEMA is the name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned the system, and I was just kind of reading on your website, and I was just curious, kind of what you meant by this. You meant that it's not an open source, as far as that, and maybe you could just speak on that to the folks.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've got because because I do HEMA, because we're so sometimes intertwined with HEMA. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a culture clash in the way that the system is taught. So and that's mostly where this is coming from. And what I meant by open source is I was thinking like kind of the metaphor around software, and where sometimes you have softwares that are just everybody can use it, everybody can download it, modify it. Our system, I one of our goals is to try to preserve the techniques as faithfully as we can, and still adapt it to our different contexts. But the key here is that there's a need for a permission to teach it. So if you're learning it, it's fine. You practice it. But if you want to teach the system, if you want to help spread and preserve it, we demand that there's a certain control over who gets to do that. If we want to make sure that our teachers are well certified and they can represent the system well before.
Quality control.
Yeah. And in HEMA, sometimes the logic here is different. Is that you have this book, the author died in the 17th century, maybe even earlier. And you're just taking this book and you're recreating it. So there's not there's not a living lineage that's still I'd say like owning the style in a way, or like that. There's no there can be a claim to ownership of this, and it's something I've been trying to put some emphasis on, because we don't want people to misrepresent what we do. So I would hate, because it's not a style that's very well known, unfortunately. So we don't want somebody just takes a few classes or watches a few videos.
Yeah, but they don't
hey, I'm
spend
teaching
on
that.
it.
And then people.
So you said about HEMA, because a lot of it's from manuscripts. I mean, like you can't go back to lineage and who came up with what, and you know what I mean. Like there's a founder per se, and so that's for as far as regards to HEMA. That's got to be difficult. As far as,
it's a culture clash sometimes, I would say, because. And I also come from partly from that world and partly from traditional martial arts, and it's in HEMA sometimes it's very much we don't have necessarily somebody at the top. We don't have we just do our things, and then you come up and you say, no, this style is there's a system, there's a little bit of a hierarchy, and people are when they're not used to that, they don't quite like to be told what to do now, what not to do.
Yeah, that's got to be right. Like very loose. Like what's what, what's, you know what I mean? What got
Yeah.
added, subtracted, modified, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. It's difficult. I think it works out for HEMA, to get, because the sources are there, and if somebody wants to go back again and re um, reinterpret the style in the
Mm,
future, it's possible. Where with our style, it's a little bit different. If that knowledge is lost, or if it's warped or deformed, it's gone. It's not coming back, right?
I
So
know, it's
yeah.
sad, or the potential thereof, I guess, is sad because I know this has happened with some of the Filipino martial arts over there post World War II. Like systems just got obliterated, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
or just lost. And so within yours, you also mentioned in there, but, and definitely we'll get to the demo, that it's not a walking stick self defense, and for the folks, what could you speak on that?
Yeah, because I've got a lot of interest from people that they say, "Oh, I want to learn this style because I need a walking stick and I want to learn self defense." That's fine. And I think people should be encouraged to do that. And sometimes they look at the system and they say, "Well, I don't know if I'll be able to do this," and we kind of have to go back and explain that, well, this style was not created necessarily for people that needed a walking stick to go around. It was created for people that walked around with a stick because they wanted to fight with them. So they
Yeah,
were
it wasn't in
mostly,
self defense. They wanted.
yeah, well, it could be self-defense, depending on the context, I
Yeah.
guess. But they were mostly, young men in their prime, just going
Mm,
around and fighting.
yeah.
And this is still kind of what the style is, and in a way, it's still very physical. It's still there's techniques involved, and you can kind of modify it to make it more applicable to self defense.
Mm,
There's a lot of movements in there that you could use with a walking stick, with an umbrella, and can modify it to your needs and your capabilities.
mm,
But in essence, it's not a style that's like some of the other, like thinking like Cane Masters or Cane Fu, or there's plenty of styles that were expressly created for people that carry a walking stick and need it in their daily lives. But this is not. That's not where this style is coming from. It's more of a stick fighting
more
style.
stick fighting, but could be altered, tailored, for
Yeah,
some self defense in the
yeah,
area of like, okay, yeah, no, that makes
yeah.
sense. Okay. Is there, so what's your teaching structure, and is there, where's your ranking, and I guess in the system, if there's any?
Sorry. Um, so the teaching structure is, right now we have a system that goes around different levels. At the top of the system, we have the art master, so it's the basically the technical director, or instructor in chief. So the person that oversees the development of the style and make sure that it's ended out properly. And below this, we have the maester, so the maester pianza. So this is the traditional way of calling stick fighting instructors in Ireland. So Master Pianza is fencing master, basically.
Okay.
Uh, and below the master, we have the propast, provos, and then we have instructors, and we have the captains, which is a bit of an honorific title for people that want to start a study group. So basically, when people want to start their own groups, what we ask is to train with, ideally with somebody face to face
Yeah.
for a certain period, and when the instructor believes that the person is ready to lead their own groups, we say, okay, now we're giving you the title of captain, though you're the study group. You can teach within your group to the people there, and then once you're ready, we can go back and make sure that you're ready to be an instructor. So making sure that you understand concepts of distance, timing, of course, you can teach and present the techniques well. And so once you've been certified as an instructor, then you can teach, and you can also teach seminars and bring people from outside and represent the style outside your school. And then the other different levels we keep for so for the ProPass, make sure this is a little bit more of a admin role, if you will. So the depending on the different groups that you need to administrate or oversee for a different region. So there are these levels, but everything is still kind of in development right now. We're still a very young organization, so we have this hierarchy. We still have mostly captains and instructors certified. But in the future, we hope to have more and just polish this structure.
Well, hopefully you get some, you get some motivation from here, or you get some follow up from here, some traction from here, that folks are watching this or will watch it on YouTube and pique their interest and follow up with you. Do you do? I do have a question here from John. I was going to ask this too. You mentioned face to face, but do you do Zoom classes?
So right now I do classes. Well, if people want to organize something with me, if they want to organize a Zoom class, like a little intro class, I'm always open to doing that. We do regular classes for all our instructors worldwide, so I try to focus on this. And I leave to some of our instructors if they wish to do more open Zoom classes, distance classes. So for a while, and I think Denny's still doing that, but we had a distance class going on with him. And I think we also have Cyril Curso-Perrier, who's in the Eastern France, around Dijon, doing also some Zoom classes every week.
Okay.
So yeah, we are open to this. Personally, I don't do regular Zoom classes because we have our in-person classes here. I'm also busy running the organization and teaching the other instructors. And we also have a first child coming up in our lives, and so lots of
life will definitely be changing.
Yeah. So not I don't want to add
too
regular
much
Zoom classes because might be a little bit.
But at least the folks who maybe want to pursue this, listening to you.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, hey, I definitely have a couple days. I want to get into the sparring aspect of it. So, if you want to demo?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just let me know what you'll do is to give you the bigger screen. When you're ready to go, I'm just going to drop myself down. So
absolutely. I'm just going to turn this camera around, and I'll grab some students here, and we can do a little bit of demo. All right.
Sounds good. Okay. All right, folks. I am going to lower myself. Not that. All right.
Hey, so can you still hear me, Dean?
Yeah, perfect. So here's so Maxime, just when you're done, just come up there and I'll know when to bring myself back up. Okay.
Right, sorry, I'm losing the audio, unfortunately, my part. So if you can hear me correctly, maybe just thumb up and.
Yeah, I can definitely hear you. Yep.
I'll just lead a little bit the demo with the guys here, and I'll come back. Fortunately, a little bit hard to get the audio and the
okay, no problem.
At the same
Sounds
time.
good.
Something out. All right. So got Adam here, student, also So we're going to demonstrate a little bit of Antrim Bata, some of the main concept for the style. So the stance that we take in Antrim Bata is what we usually call the high outside guard. So we start our fights usually in position of carry cane. So as if we're walking around the streets here with the cane, and we just go and rise up and get into our main eye outside guard. So the stance that we're using is where we have this very square stance. We have the hips are a little bit back from our body. So we're not standing straight up like this. We're standing a little bit with the hips back, so that this helps to cover the lower body. As the stick is going to be mostly covering the eye line, so the head and everything that's up over the shoulders. So when we're moving around here, what I'm going to do is let's say that Adam attacks me to the head, right? So all my parries, and again, right? All the parries are done as beats, right? So I have these guard positions, but they're never static. I'm always trying to intercept the strike as it's coming. Just stop and bounce back and use that energy to strike. So what I was saying earlier about the way we strike, and sometimes in harness or MMA, strike is a little bit more slash. So going across the body this way, right, and following the hips. Here in Antrim Bata, we try to use more of a throw. So when I'm actually striking, what I'm doing is I'm going to extend my hips, push into that lead shoulder to push the strike forward. Right? So if you're just maybe holding the stick on this side, right, to the outside, and try to strike it a few times. So just like a little bit more like a jab. Or sometimes I teach it more as a hammer fist this way, right? Going across, but throwing, and we're not going all the way around because we want to keep protecting the hand, right? This is really the biggest target. So I go here, and once I pass the target, I quickly go back, protect, in case something else happens, right? So the same thing if I was striking at the other side. So from a backhand position, again, same throwing motion to the front. Right? Going here, back and strike this way. Interesting thing in the style that's very useful is we can also use we'll call it a hook. So this is one of those techniques I would say that are a little bit harder for most styles to apprehend when they're not used to that kind of reach. So I'm gonna take 2 steps back here. So, all right, guys. Hope you're still seeing us. So that barrel check. Make sure everything is all right on the screen. So here, so we have the hook. So if you've ever seen a little bit of Killinda from the Caribbeans, what we tend to do is use the stick to its full extent, usually to strike the legs or can strike body. What is great here is that I extend my reach so that if Adam here wanted to strike me, he's kind of out of reach, and I can still extend in there. So very confusing. It was just a lot of other styles when you're used to have more of a fixed reach with your stick, and then suddenly, you think, the guy, if he wants to reach me from there, he's going to have to take an extra step. So I let my guard down a little bit, and then bang, this comes up, and pretty hard to out-of-grip for a lot of people. And we also have strikes or techniques where we do what we call infighting. So if we're at a distance where I could punch or could grab Adam here, what I can do is I can use elbows, which are basically, as the name implies, almost like elbow strikes you would see in MMA, Muay Thai today. So the logic here is that I come in with my second hand. This is where things start to look a little bit like the Doyle style. We have some similar techniques, I would say, in many ways, and this is one of them. So that if I'm close enough, I can use this strike across the face, both sides, and get myself out there. Again, if you want to hold the stick a bit here on the outside here. So I'm just going to showcase a little bit the elbow. So coming from here, I can use this slide and push against my stick and do this very close contact rope with my stick. Same thing with the other side. We also have techniques like the bayonet, where we're going to use the stick to truss with, so that if Adam's coming from my head here, block, and come into the face, throat, body, feeling a bit more gentle. So this very devastating strike, like come here to the throat, it's very dangerous to use against an opponent in real life. So we have these, we have pikes on the other side. We've got moves, so like a cross check, hockey a little bit. And we also have a few wrestling techniques where you can come in for a double leg or even a single leg takedown. So there's a strike coming in from my head, come in here, I would come in for the lead leg and push on the front back leg of Adam here with my stick and bring him down as I push up into hips or grab both legs if I can. Again, come in with a double leg takedown. Get slaps. We're using the offhand to strike, gouge. We've got, of course, grabs, disarms. Coming here, striking. Strike with a lark. Very powerful strike here. Also very hard to parry and come around. If you try to protect your head, come around the parry, even hard to grab. Sometimes when you get a control of the opponent's stick, but he doesn't let go, you can come in and strike with this lark. So yeah, those are some of the techniques we use, but there's a surprising amount of techniques in this style. We've got even techniques to defend against multiple opponents. If we're surrounded, we grab the stick two-handed like this, and just rolling around, create some space. You see that sometimes in other European snap styles, where people will rotate around, keep distance from all the opponents surrounding them, and just move around and get out, hopefully, to safety. So yeah, this is a little bit of a taste of what the style looks like. And we can do a little bit of slow play, just to try a little bit of those in action. So. You can block too. You can block as well. Right? Good. All right, folks. So, yeah, a little bit of an idea of what the style looks like. So, for you, we'll probably come back, showcase a little bit more about how we have about French stick as well, and try to do maybe another little demonstration. So, thank you, Adam. All right, table.
That was awesome. So I like some of the whip arounds, and I also like the option of going. You can go right or come around, left. I thought the single leg that was, coming in, so really neat stuff. Yeah, that was neat.
Thank you, thank you.
Well
Yeah,
done.
like I was saying in the demonstration, the hook, like this whip
Yeah.
extension. Uh, I when I started sparring a little bit with folks doing FMA, and I remember we did kind of a little dog brother fight at some point with some of the folks down east, and um, one of the first fights I did from the beginning, I had my opponent, was taking this very high guard around here, just
Mm.
waiting for me to come close. So I started doing hooks to the chest, and I was bang, 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 leaning a few like that. And my friend there was just staying in that position and thought like, oh my god, this is you're just tanking those blows and it's not doing anything. I should change techniques. This is not working out. So anyway, I changed my approach. We do other stuff, and then at the end of the fight, he came to see me and he said, "That thing you did at the beginning, I had no idea how to respond to it. I just froze
No,
there." And I thought, "Damn it, should have just
no,
kept
that's
going."
and actually,
Yeah.
I got a couple of vids of the Dog Brothers, which leads to my next question is obviously you're sparring with this and all
Yep.
that. So are you actively advocating out there, or is it kind of based on the individual if they want to experiment with that or see the outcome or what they can instill as far as the tactics go? And
So, well, I guess the first thing is in my classes, I never force anyone to spar if they're really not interested in it. They don't feel that they're ready. So it's always has to be like all things in life has to be consensual. But definitely we encourage that, and it's in most of our classes we reserve about the at least half an hour to do free play. And it at the beginning, I came mostly from the arm martial arts background. I came from like Shinkendo. There was not any sparring component to this, and I realized at some point that there are some concepts that are very very hard to grasp if you don't try them against a resisting opponent.
100%, how are you gonna know?
Yeah.
Or what I mean, or you might even like evolve, like things you find out depending on the style you're going against, or like things that work and all that. And you seem to do that, which I think is admirable.
Yeah, I really wanted in 2016. I went to a Black Brothers gathering in Montreal, and it's kind of my goal was, sometimes people say, I've got nothing to prove, but in a way, I had something to prove to myself and for the style. It was a
Mm.
lot of people were looking at this, and because we're kind of the new kids, and
The new,
you
the
know
new kids are.
yeah. So like, yeah, who's this new kid there? And like, don't like the way they dressed, and they do strange things.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to just just come in and show who you are, and it was a little bit it's a little bit of spirit behind us was to show to the world like, hey, we're there and we can hold our own, and we're not
I like it. I tell
yeah.
you, I like what I'm seeing and I'm hearing from you. I mean, just got a couple questions here before. Okay, no shoe slipped a low line front kick. Is that typical technique when sparring?
Yes. So yeah, that's another thing I forgot in the demo, but we do have kicks in Antrim Bata. It's very interesting because so the kicks we use, they're a little bit like what you would see in Savat, I would say.
Oh,
Uh,
Savant. Okay, yeah, you
yeah,
had that in
but
like JKD days. Okay,
yeah. But they're all aimed at the lower body.
lower. Okay.
It's all mostly leg kicks to the leg, knees, groin,
Hmm.
sometimes at the belly, but those are a bit more, a bit different. But the aim is usually when the opponent comes very close, you try to take those shots, or when you're wrestling. And this is an interesting component to it, because in Ireland there's also wrestling style, which unfortunately disappeared. But there's people today that are recreating and bringing back the style. It's collar and elbow. So Rudin McFadden is mostly behind the effort of bringing back the style, and it's kind of enjoying a revival right now. But it's a fixed old style, very popular in America back in the 19th century. And people basically hold each other with a vest by the elbow, by the collar, as the name implies. And you're not allowed to break the grip, at least until your opponent falls down. If you break the grip, you take a fall. But if you manage to get the opponent on the ground, of course, you also score a fall. And the interesting thing is, in the old days, they also use kicks quite a lot, and they would wear hard-soled shoes. Okay. And they say that they would kick the shins. This was partly a way to trip, but also a way to injure and tire your opponents. They say, because people were knickers back then, their shins would look like raw steaks at the end of the fight. And so at some point they decided, well, maybe we should remove that component. So they went for soft shoes instead and banned the kicking. But I think that this is probably a link in our style, because when I saw this in Rudin's research, it was after I had learned Irish stick from my teacher. And I always wondered, how does this connect to the Irish martial arts history? And I realized that what we do is probably connected to how people do those kicks. Definitely. And we want to introduce a little bit of collar and elbow in what we do, because there's a little bit of a stick wrestling component to it, but there's a lot of wrestling. But I think that's because people that did stick fighting, they would also do collar and elbow. So you don't necessarily have to include all of this in your stick fighting style if there's already a mainstream, very popular, very developed wrestling style that everybody practices anyway.
It's just fascinating, isn't it? Just what they did, and it's just, I got another. Is that just a common walking stick, or is there a particular length you want more than the other?
So the length is it's a tricky matter. So I'd say the minimum length you want for a stick in Antrim Bata is, if you're taking the stick here. Also, if you're measuring it to your hand, it's, I would say, twice the length from your knuckles to your elbow. If you got a stick this length, you can pretty much use the style without modifying it. And you can go up to 3 times that length. This is mostly coming from my own experimentation, but beyond that length, what happens is some of the techniques, like the hooks or bayonet, becomes very hard to pull off, because you have to reach so far out that it becomes impractical. But yeah, between those 2 lengths is what personally I would suggest. Traditionally, I was told by my teacher that the length would be 4 feet long, and I was a little bit curious about this, because I've done for one-handed,
really long.
Yeah. And I was always like, I tried a little bit, and it's definitely doable, depending on the stick weight and the balance. But what I realized through my research, because I was looking at it, and there's authors that also talk about, those people that use 4 feet long sticks, but then you look at the illustrations they have, and they don't look 4 feet at all.
They don't look 4 feet, huh? Yeah.
And then I was like, what is this? And I happened to remember something from my historian background, and I thought that feet were not always the same in history. I wonder what it was like in Ireland, and I realized that up until the mid 19th century, even sometimes later, people still use a very old system of Gaelic measures. And
interesting. So maybe that's where it got. Okay.
Yeah, actually, the basically 4 feet in that Gaelic system is 3 feet. in the
There you
modern.
go.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, this is 3 feet is pretty much walking stick length,
Yeah.
pretty much what we use. So I think that's probably where that misunderstanding came from. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And we got another question from Daniel. Why blackthorn is the wood of choice for the Bata, while hawthorn is to be avoided? What other woods
Oh,
are acceptable? So, yeah.
yeah. Now we're getting in the more esoteric part of Irish stick fighting. So yeah, I have a blackthorn stick here.
Okay.
So this is also an antique, very interesting one. It's you can see it, but on one side it's got a little bit like kind of a meat
I was
tenderizer,
gonna say it looks like a
and
meat, yeah.
and the other side is a little
Kind of
skull.
face or skull. Or,
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not sure what the
implications there
we're
are.
going for, but anyway,
Yeah.
Blackthorn and Arthorn, they're very very close. Well, they're from the same genus, and they're both very good woods to make fighting sticks out of. Actually, the blackthorn is very hard wood. It's apparently it's got one of the best lightness to solidity ratio, is what I've been told.
And that's generally what's used, right? The Doyle's used. I mean,
Yeah,
blackthorn is generally what's used, right? Okay.
yeah, it was one of the most popular ones. And Hawthorne, you never see it mentioned in any of the sources I've seen. I was always kind of wondering about this because, like here in Ottawa, we have 0 blackthorn, but we have tons of Hawthorne. So I thought, like, well, maybe you can use that. And then I dug into some of the more of the folklore around these trees because in Ireland used to be a big forest island up until the 17th century. When the British came, they started to just really cut all the forests down, and it was partly to get all the warriors, the kerns, the yellow glasses that were
all those hooligans.
yeah, get them out of the forest because it was very hard for the British to fight in those spaces. So they thought, well, let's just cut all those forests and force them to become farmers and just bring them out of their wild lifestyles. And well, it kind of worked. And but they have a very big folklore around trees. There's even the first alphabet that came in Ireland is the story goes that it was the trees that taught man how to write. And there's different types of trees that are sacred in different ways. And so blackthorn and hawthorn are sometimes called sister trees.
Sister trees. Okay.
And they're a little bit like kind of the yin and the yang, if you will, of Irish trees. The blackthorn is very much associated with war, winter, some you would say probably negative connotations to it. There's fairies that are inhabiting those trees, and they're said to be some of the most aggressive fairies around. If you cut down a blackthorn tree, like on the 11th of November, for example, or on the 1st of May, I believe, they will come down and just do really bad things to you. But the hawthorn tree on the other side is more about spring, fertility, protection. But if you cut an hawthorn tree, and especially one that's growing in a field alone, you're in trouble. And there's some, they're probably very sacred to the fairies. And if you bring a hawthorn branch in your house, it can mean that one of your family members is going to die, and very bad things going to happen.
Okay. So there's okay.
Yeah. So they, this seems to have been why people never use blackthorn, or rather hawthorn, for stick fighting.
For the actual sticks. Okay.
It was a big taboo around.
Okay. So not so much that the wood wasn't as good quality.
Oh, no, yeah, it's a good wood, yeah.
But, just that it was more the superstition, I guess, tradition, what have you. Okay.
Yeah. And they also said that the wood had a temper to it, so that if you hit somebody with an hawthorn branch, it would make you very, it would bring like bloodlust into you, and you would become overly violent, and you would probably kill the other person. So there's all these stories around it. Yeah.
Neat. All right, I want to just we were talking on sparring, so
Yep.
I want to show this vid, which I thought was pretty neat. Of you. I'm just gonna pull it up right now. Just bear with me. Um, okay, here we go. Maxime painted dog. Um, and you're actually, like you mentioned, you're kind of sparring, fooling around with a dog brother. Um, and so here we go, folks. Coming up. All right. So this is, I think, painted dog, if I'm not mistaken. That
Yes.
you were that you're moving around with here, which
Yeah, we train usually in the weekends with these guys. So Badger.
Badger. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know of him. Okay.
yeah.
So
So
let's
this
check
is
this out.
yeah, Liam.
I think it's just neat that you were actually seeing how it works against dog brothers. You know what I mean?
And those so yeah, Liam also yeah, a student from Badger, and so those a bit of Muay Thai, I think, and we're both very cagey fighters, so we're both pretty careful.
Yeah, you can definitely see you guys are circling. Nobody's really committing yet.
Yeah,
Or yeah,
yeah,
you can definitely
or
see it.
some of the other fighters that are a bit more aggressive than we are, but
Yeah,
I
and
think
some of them.
both being a little bit smaller
Oh, small.
dudes.
Oh, so you guys are being
We
a little
tend
more
to
cautious.
keep our distance. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And engaging each other. So how long? I mean, do you generally try to get? I mean, because I know there's another one that another bit also that there was another dog brother you were also sparring with. Um, any other systems, right, like that? As far as it doesn't have to be FMA, anything, as far as you sparring around with.
Oh, anybody that
Anybody
wants to
wants to
spar
say?
with us, yeah, I've done it with because I've done Lacan and France and
Yeah,
Quebec as well. So I found with some of my teachers, at French Cane, I
yeah.
did.
I think it's good on you though. I mean, you're going out there and see what works and
Oh yeah,
what
yeah,
needs to be maybe.
and some yeah, sometimes you look at something before using it against somebody, and you're like, oh, not what is this? What
Yeah.
purpose does this serve? And then inspiring, you realize, oh, okay, yeah, now I see what this is all about. It makes sense. Or yeah,
Definitely.
so yeah, definitely helps.
So what was the as far as the other guys that you went with and all that, what was some of the feedback you got from them as far as regardless of what system? Like they say, wow, I didn't know how that was different. I didn't anything like in terms of that?
Yeah, I think well, I think people are usually like we were talking earlier about the new kids, and I sometimes I feel like yeah, Irish stick is it's coming back. It's not most people don't really know what it's about,
Mm,
so we come in and yeah, what is this? And it takes a few maybe sparring sessions to realize oh yeah those guys yeah they're good they're it's interesting because also the system, the way we strike, all this to some other systems, it might appear very different, very like not really what they're being taught
mm.
to do, and yeah, they say, oh yeah, those strikes, they're not strong enough, or you gotta lead with the whole body, true, and but then yeah, it's I think when we show people that no, that can work, and when you get hit, it comes with power. So yeah, the sparring and just doing that with people, I think was a big and that always well, it probably doesn't sound strange to people here, but that hitting people with a stick brings people together. Make friends to make some friends by hitting them in the head with a
Yeah,
big stick.
right.
Yeah.
Jeez. So now I'm going to change direction here because you also train in French stick fighting. So um, let's hear a little about that. And I think you got a demo on that as well, correct?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the French Lacan system is something I've been interested probably for longer than the Irish stick. But when I started, it was mostly through old manuals. It was just always been a little bit more interested, I guess, in some of the French historical manuals, since I speak French. It's my first language, and it's like I felt like not a lot of people explore those. But basically, to go back a little bit in the history of the practice, it's probably older than most people think, but uh, we know that stick fighting was always practiced in France, like most places in the world. But we know, like in the 16th century, was taught in fencing schools called there was staff fighting, Bata. Bâton à deux bouts was very popular. So that two-ended, not handed, but a stick with two ends, usually that little spikes on each side. It's very much popular in those schools. And by the 18th and 19th century, and this is kind of a parallel evolution with Savant. You have these teachers, a lot of them coming back from the army, especially the Navy after the Napoleonic Wars. They open up those schools and they start teaching stick fighting, Lacan, Bâton, as well as Savate, boxe française, French boxing. And then they start to make it a little bit more appealing to the middle class and the upper class, and they open up those schools. It becomes very like it just rolls over French martial arts culture. It gets taught to the army. So we have a bunch of manuals from the 19th century that teach us how to use those sticks, and it's very close to saber of the time. So there's lunging, and there's the mechanics are very similar. The movements tend to be a lot wider, larger, because of course with a saber you'd have a guard protecting your hand, and it's used a little bit like I explain sometimes to my students. It's used kind of like a buckler, so you keep it in front there. And this is why you're usually cutting from the wrist, because you can use this as you're cutting. You can use that as a protection to close the line and avoid getting hit on the arm. But you don't have that, of course, with a stick. So you need to use bigger motions to keep your hand and keep it moving target, right? But otherwise, it's very similar. And what you do one-handed, you can also do it two-handed. It's all very transferable and the skill, but very, very different from Irish stick. I think maybe the hooks are the closest thing in our system to what would be done in Lacan, but the rest is it's very similar, and it still exists today, but it changed very drastically in the 1970s. Up until then, the style was pretty much what it would have looked like in the 19th century, but it was losing students. It was emerging student. It was a kind of whole kung fu craze.
When the traditional, I got Karate Kid, and I got you.
And now, of course, young French kids,
BJJ.
But even like way before that, even people wanted to do what Bruce Lee was doing in the movies, or what they saw. Not what their granddad was doing with a stick.
Which if you think about it, it's like so much more rare and eclectic, and I know.
Like that. But a few people kind of got together and they said, well, we got to do something about this. So they kind of they reworked the style to make it more acrobatic, more visually appealing, look a little bit more like wushu maybe. So there's jumps, and big movements and all that. And to make it into a sport with fixed targets, fixed striking mechanics, and it's very impressive to see. Like you can search for it on YouTube, Kanda Comba, and it's very athletic. And I found with some of the guys doing that, guys and the women also doing that, and they're surprisingly hard to touch or to hit, because the system is so limited, and it forces you to always really wind up all your strikes. So every strike you give is going to be very telegraphed. And so the result is that they become kind of master in misdirection and feinting.
Because of it's an inherent telegraph, so they have to. Oh, okay, that makes sense as far as the redirection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very hard to just hit somebody from the first intention. So they have to do very complex feints and movements. So it's very hard to, when you're fighting somebody that's experienced, to guess where they're gonna try and hit you, and they're so fast. It's incredible. But yeah, the style changed a lot. And ironically, what's happening today is that people are trying to recreate the older styles now, because now the kids are not interested in the new stuff from the 70s. They're like, oh no, we want the old the old style now. And so
yeah. Let's see it.
Sure.
I'm definitely interested in this.
Yeah, it's just I'll try. Yeah, same setting again.
Yeah, same thing. I'll lower myself as well.
All right.
And just let me know when you're. Well, I'll know when you're done. So.
Right, so yeah, we're just gonna show a little bit what the French hand looks like. So again, very different from what you'll see in the Irish. So I just added a little bit of the saber-like motion for that. But basically, so we're gonna start from the old style. So the first style we know of from like the very early 19th century is a little bit different. So usually people will take these guards from the shoulder, always with the backhand, a little bit like saber on your back. So on your shoulder here, front shoulder like this, and doing these wide arcing motions around your body. So coming in from the side, or also coming in outside from the south. So very wide motion with the stick like that. And this is especially this kept being used in some of the later styles to fight multiple opponents. Again. So they would use this just create space and fight with different opponents. But later on in the 1820s, it changed a little bit to something a little bit more akin to saber. So there's this outside guard that's brought up. So a little bit closer to the body, and saber usually has, so you want to keep it further up. But it's your shield, so it's covering your arm, it's covering your outside line. But with the stick, of course, you want to keep it closer. So people would stand in this position, and again, very wide motion with the hand, and using these lunges to strike. Coming in head. So if you strike me here, that will block and come back here. So side means blocking, coming around. Yes. Right. So not a lot of trusting instead of that in some manuals, but we'll see those big market strikes. And so this is changed a little bit with Chouinard, very famous savant guy in the early 1900s, and the strike become wrapped around the body. So not just up in the air like this, but really back and striking. Again, very, very powerful. You can actually see there's a video from 1900. It's on my channel, personal channel. It's the Chouinard with the student showcasing the strike and style. And every time you'll see them, so if we just do a back and forth the head, so we're coming here. So you'll see them doing this gathering motion with the legs. That's very true to the mid and early 19th century. So they do this to help protect the legs. Usually when you try to hit somebody's legs, what they'll do is they'll slip, right? So they'll avoid the strike and they can hit you at the same time, right? But they would do this all the time. So there's a strike coming through your head, so the strike coming from the side, you slip, right? So this is kind of to make sure that you always have your leg protected so that they're not, let's say, fainting to your head, but in reality coming for your leg. So it's safe. It's one way to do this. Now, it's also possible, as I was saying, to do this with the Bata. So now this is where things get a little bit confusing when I speak to American friends. So Bata, of course, in America is just kind of a nice stick or short stick. But in France, it just means stick. But in this context, when people said baton, it was a longer two-ended staff where the can would be the shorter walking stick length. So for the staff, again, you can use kind of the same concepts. Only little difference is usually the guard is on the inside here, but the strikes are going to be very similar, right? So I can strike to the side, strike to the top, right? This is movement motions. One thing that's similar in some of those styles to Irish stick is there's this portion here that protects the arm, protects the hand. So that if I'm standing here on guard and Adam tries to come for the hand on the inside, I can use the tendon to the lower part of the stick here to block, and hopefully as he comes down, strike him at the same time. So very hard to pull off in sparring. You love great timing and precision to do this. We have the same concept too in Irish stick, where I guess we can do it with a longer stick, but the strike comes here to the side, you can block and strike at the same time, and basically the opponent is giving you that final extension by pushing on the leg of your stick. But it's kind of, there's a little bit of the same concept. Some styles just drift and stack by the end just to get extra length, and some do it this way instead. And you have those also called extended parries. So if a strike comes from the head, I could block with the hands apart and use, like we're doing, panic motion, or even the one-handed reverse strike this way, a little bit more flashy. But this is a little bit what le baton looks like. So very, very circular motion parries. So again, you can see those in some of the older videos from the 1890s when you started to have actual video recording. We're lucky enough that some of the Lumiere brothers actually took videos of this, so we can see it in action. But the modern style, a little bit different. So for the baton, called the baton fédéral, the grip is actually palm down both sides, and it's a little bit more convoluted to make those strikes happen. When you got to take those kind of open hand position, make it work, where you're coming to the side, striking, and like this, where in the old days they would just have deep hands. And if I just showcase rapidly mother Candacomba, so I haven't done this seriously in ages, so please, if you do Candacomba, don't hate me for that very bad demonstration I'm going to do. But the style is a little bit, again, a bit more modern, up on your feet, more kind of kickboxer style. And there's not a lot of lunging except when you're going with the legs. We usually have these strikes or Bata, like this, right? So I was saying because you have to always bring the hand back past your back before striking. If I try to do this in a competition, it won't count it. So, it's not proper arm eight. So you have to bring it back before striking, right? So it telegraphs a lot, and there's only 6 targets I can hit. So I down here, if he sees me coming like this, probably like, yeah, he's gonna hit me this side, right? So I gotta find ways to make it a little bit more feint, where I take this and misdirect and go for our target, or come around for a brief couple of brise here. Again, I'm gonna do another one, and then come in and slow the legs. And because this, most strikes are to the legs, really. It's artist part to defend. So, and then you got, as I was saying, more showy acrobatic things. Probably not going to be able to pull this one up, but if somebody was coming for my legs, I could jump, strike, and at the same time, hopefully, and avoid it. But this is, again, more the reverse lunge, more acrobatic, showy portion of Candacomba. So this is a little bit what the French stick fighting comes from. So different approach from Irish stick. We got this 1/3 style, a bit more compact, not a lot of lunging motions. Where here it's a lot more fencing, like straight back, big lunges, big motions. So two different school of thought. Of course, some similarities, but two styles. So thank you, Adam.
Wow, that was interesting, huh? I always heard about it, but never really knew, as far as the tactics or the movements. You know what I mean? That was interesting. I can definitely see what you mean, though. You got to really, being the telegraph, you have to really try to get creative and try to, as far as finding, redirects and what have you.
Yeah, it's a very tricky system, but it's it kind of a sink or swim, right? If you want to get good, you got to find those ways to.
Yeah, I bet you're be experiencing failures, trying to find out what works for you. Yeah. That's interesting, though. That's wow. And do you currently teach that as well?
No, Candacomba, I did it. There's a few ranks, and I'm a red pommel, a little bit like.
Oh, you're so okay. So you're still but playing around. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, I did it in university. One of my students actually came to my university for a year to study. In exchange, it was from Paris, and we trained together. I was teaching him Irish stick, and he was teaching me Candacomba. And pre-pandemic, I was going to Paris to teach a seminar there in Irish stick every year. And sorry, I'm just going to take some sip of water. And I try to continue doing that, but Philippe, I guess, over there in Paris, one of the veteran instructor, very knowledgeable guy in the history of the Lacan. Very very enjoyable to go practice with these.
Yeah, it looks it. Yeah. I mean, I know it's like so much out there. Just you want to go play around with, but then you start getting into logistics of time, money, and yeah.
Yeah.
I do got a question. Let me see. I know you looked at a lot of stick arts. Which system or person do you think treat the stick mostly like a stick and not a sword? I'm not sure what he means by that because none of the things that you do are sword related. So
Yeah. Well, I would say, uh, yeah, most stick fighting system, at least like pre-modern ones, tend to be very closely related to sword or other weapons, right? Because you're usually like if I come back to Lacan, right? All these guys were also doing fencing, saber, and all these other things. So you want to keep when you're teaching all of this, you don't want to one day say, okay, now folks, we've just learned saber. Now we're going to learn a completely different set of skills for the stick. Like, no, you're going to lose your students. So you want to keep these same principles so that they can use them in other weapons, right? And so for stick or sword, Irish stick is a bit different. And there's been a lot of debate about its origin and, what other weapon it's related to. A lot of people are saying, well, a British broadsword, and because I do both, there's similarities, but I don't think there's as big a link as certain people would believe. I think maybe there's a link actually with axe fighting. I think the
more axe as far as Irish stick fighting.
Yeah, because it's something few people know about the Irish, but from the medieval era up to the 17th century, the axe was one of the most popular weapon down there. And there's one travelogue from the 12th century, guy from Wales, Gerald Wales, Travel in Ireland, and there's only a very small portion of his book where he talks about the axe, but he says the Irish people, they walk around with axes as if they were walking sticks. And he says it's peculiar because they use them one-ended with the thumb across the shaft of the stick to direct the blow, and as it comes down. And when you think about this, and there were people in the 19th century who taught the same, looking at both sources, but they were saying, yeah, it's very close to what people do in Irish stick fighting. There's a thumb up here, and if you're using a walking stick length axe, you're probably not going to grip it by the end because it's going to be wildly, so you're probably going to grip it a little bit higher. And yeah, maybe there's some connection here. And
that's interesting. I would never correlate the axe with far as like a parallel to but that's interesting. Yeah, so what do you so now you also you're pretty extensive in your research. So like what are you currently researching far as other systems or what have you? But it sounds like you do more on the the ancient systems or ones that are
well I'm I work in museum. I been study archaeology and been a historian for most of my life now, and of course history of martial arts is a big passion, and I've tended to gravitate around, of course, history of Irish stick and French saber and all this, but I'm sometimes I happen to find things, interesting things out there, and I decide to try them up. And one of those things we were talking about the other day is Mexican knife fighting.
I know, right. That's right.
Yeah. I became interested in this because I was researching in newspaper database, and I happened to find these couple of articles that were mentioning how people fought with the Bowie knife, and two of them were explaining and giving images of how the people in Mexico use the Bowie knife, and it's a style I've been trying to recreate a little bit. And like we're talking, I've been trying to find if there were still people doing that in Mexico, but it's It's not easy to not easy to not easy to find this kind of skill set these days.
Yeah, that is interesting though, because I myself would like to know more about that because like I was mentioning in the test run, hearing that what was the Filipinos in exile? You know what I mean. But then you look at Texas, the Bowie knife. I mean, so I mean, it's interesting how that all might have come together.
And
as far as
I
the influence.
and I am not an expert in Filipino, but I brought the knife I was showing you the other day. So this is Mexican Bowie. Right? So it's got this
Look at that.
scorpion tail, very particular of Mexican knives.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of similar in shape to some I think some form of Filipino knives, that have these.
They have the belly and the curve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. So I don't know if there's some sort of Spanish or Filipino or like something.
That's depending on the blade, there could be Spanish influenced, or depending on the wider bellies tend to be indicative of source from not only but Mindanao, what I mean, southern Philippines, but
yeah, and it was a lot of travel around those colonies.
Yeah, definitely, as far as trade and what have you, and sure, that's interesting. Though. Wow. So
and interesting style as well. Yeah.
So you're still kind of searching that as well as some of the other Europeans.
Okay. It's I would say it's more of it's very much a side thing for the Mexican. Like we've worked on the articles. I've translated or transcripted rather for Mexican knife fighting, but I think there are some people who are really more into Bowie knife than I am, and they've uncovered as well some other stuff. But I've somebody sent me a video the other day of two people and I think it was, I want to say Ecuador, but maybe I'm wrong there. But two people dueling with knives. Of course, putting this online. But the way they were both fighting was so close to what I interpreted from those articles that I was thinking, well, there's maybe some sort of a Mexican, South American knife fighting culture going on. And I know that there's
I think it's Spanish too, because if you look at Argentina, it's Screama Criolla. They definitely have the knife. So they had to be that Spanish. I'm guessing that's that Spanish influence from there. I don't know.
They talk in the article about how when the Spanish came to Mexico, their style was different, and they would stand very straight, like most distras alike, I guess, and with the knife extended, and they would use a cape in their offhand, a little bit like what you see in Argentina.
Yeah.
And they said they stopped doing this because apparently in Mexico the duels could be like a snap thing, like somebody couldn't come behind you and just attack you, and so you have no time to take your cape off and put it in your arm, so you just have the time to whip out the knife and get into the duel. So they would just keep the hand there in front of you, front of the throat, front of the face, and they rotating the knife here, and trying to cut the opponent's hand, try to grab it, and try to come in for a thrust, always to the heart, ideally. So that's what we, as far as we know right now. But maybe there are still people out there that practice this. But
it'd be interesting to find out. I mean, jeez, wow. So what do you got? So what's as far as future goals for yourself, the system, and I guess research with the
lots of things going on, and it's we're still working on strengthening our base, our organization. We it's very much a kind of a nonprofit thing what we do, because when I learned Irish stick fighting, my teacher had promised two things. He said, don't turn it into a sport, and he said, don't make money out of it. And I'm trying to stick to those two things. So we don't want to, we do take training ideas, techniques from sport fighting,
Yeah.
but we don't necessarily want to hold tournaments or worldwide championships or things like that, because it's and I can see his point, that can be a slippery slope sometimes. And also, well, the monetary factor, where I leave it to some of my students, because some of them are professional martial arts instructors, and if they want to make a living out of teaching martial arts, it's fine. But we want to make sure that the organization itself is nonprofit, and we're really just aiming to preserve and share this style. And so we want to keep growing, want to keep getting better, but we want to make sure that's not at the that we're doing this while respecting our promises, our vision, and also maintaining high quality standards for our instructors.
Yeah, keeping the integrity of the system, and yeah, sure, that's honorable. You can definitely see that.
And for research, it's right now I have two book project, one that I've been working on, or maybe delaying for years now, but I have to finish writing a book about Irish stick fighting, about Antrim Bata. I want to talk a little bit about my historical research in there, and also showcase some of the techniques, so that people can get a good view of what the style is like. And as well, I have another interesting project, because for a while for many years I worked as a curator in a medical museum, and it's also one of my areas of interest, medicine, and I try to bring the two together, because when I started working in 18th century military surgery manuals, I realized that it talked a lot about the injuries people could receive from swords, and especially one book was very, very thorough about this. A French military surgeon, was talking about that. Mentioned, like all the cases he had seen over the years, different kind of injuries people could get. And I thought this would be an interesting project, like trying to bring a medical perspective onto sword fighting or weapon fighting. And sometimes it gives you a different look at things, because while a modern day surgeon might see a lot of knife injuries, or he's probably not going to see quite as much bladed weapon injuries as a military surgeon in 7 Years' War would see coming in. So you learn a lot about what those weapons could do to the human body, how people would treat them, and how it might have also influenced what the techniques were like. So what is more deadly, or what was considered more deadly at the time, is could be influenced. So that's also another book project I have, and I wrote a little article about this on my blog. But it's a secondary project.
No, that's awesome. Wow, that's fantastic as far as goals. Where can, as far as the blog is concerned, where can folks so they can visit that? I know
Absolutely.
you said, I'm just for the folks that are watching, though.
Yeah, so I've got a few different things going on. We have YouTube channels. There's one for Antrim Bata. There's one for some of our more personal things, but personal one is just Maxime Chouinard, my name. Where you can see I've got some. I did some technical videos on this. Also some old 19th century or early 1900s videos of martial arts. And the Antrim Bata is really focused on our style of Irish stick fighting. And I've got also our official page, antrimbata.com, where we also have a little blog there talking about the history and the current practice. And my main research blog, which is HEMA Misfit. So you can find it on Facebook and find it online, but it's where I just publish whatever I'm kind of interested at the time. So I got quite a few articles ranging from Mexican knife fighting, Irish stick, saber, even a few about the history of kendo in America in the early 20th century, late 19th century. So yeah, lots of things out there. So if people want to,
definitely, I
read
think,
up.
So wow, this has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to download it, and what I do is I put it to a channel, and I'll send the download to you via Messenger, and you can of course share where you want. But this has been great. I appreciate you. I mean, this was really interesting and informative. Especially on your section of Irish stick fighting or what you teach, and then the French stuff. That was well done. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And
Oh yeah, no, we got Daniel help coordinated too, so we got
yes, yeah. Daniel, know studies a little bit with civil, and gonna go down there at some point and get something going on. But yeah, thanks for having me. If you ever want to chat again about all these other things I'm doing, feel free to reach
Oh
out to
yeah,
me.
definitely. Keep me in the loop what you got going on. I
Yeah,
would definitely bring you back. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And whatever you're doing, definitely with the demos and stuff. Sure.
great.
All right, Maxime, you take care. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, really informative. Here, folks, again, if you're not, we have this going on in FMA discussion. Jesse of FMA Pulse, unfortunately, all this stuff was stolen. So we're running a fundraiser in there just to get a raffle, rather, try to get him some money back to get. So again, this is pinned in FMA discussion. You can see all the information there. It's going to be last Sunday of the month. We'll actually run the raffle. Incredible stuff donated. Bram, Frank, bunch of knives, some other weapons. There's some books. Really check out under the comment section under the post what's been offered by far as donations, as far as raffle items. Some really good stuff and all that. But also, who's next? Wednesday night, Dan Loman. Okay, so if I don't talk to any of you, have a great 4th of July, and hopefully I'll see some of you Wednesday night. All right, take care all.